Hello, welcome to this video on Dhammapada, chapter 6, Pandita Vaggo, verse 14, which is the last verse in that chapter, and verse number 89 in the consecutive numbering. As usual, I will start without the text in front of us, and then I will read the text, read it with the text up. Ye sang sambodhyangesu sammachittang subhavitam adana patinissagge anupadaya yerata khinasava jutimanto te loke parinibbuta. And I'll now bring up the text. There we are. Ye sang sambodhyangesu sammachittang subhavitam adana patinissagge anupadaya yerata khinasava jutimanto te loke parinibbuta. Ye sang sambodhyangesu. Ye sang of whom, genitive plural of the relative pronoun, of whom, those of whom. In English, you would have to say those persons of whom, or those person whose. In Pali, it's okay to start the sentence with ye sang of whom, meaning those persons of whom. Those persons of whom the what? Of whom the chittam, of whom the chitta, the mind, is samma subhavitam. It's a samma, perfectly, rightly. There's a lot to that word, as I've explained earlier. It's the same word that we see in the the Noble Eightfold Path. All of these 8 factors begin with samma, usually translated as right, but there's a lot more to it. The idea of harmony and perfection, the ordered harmony. Subhavitam, again we have our well-known bhaveti, bhavana, the causative form from bhubhavati, causative bhaveti, Sanskrit bhavayati, Pali you can have bhavayati also, but most commonly bhaveti. The past participle, let me call up the iPad. So bhavati, and in Pali also you utilize hoti. Causative form, class 10, bhavayati, and in Pali also bhaveti. There's no distinction of meaning. And in both languages, Sanskrit and Pali, we have the bhavana, which the basic meaning of it is causing to be, bringing into being. The passive participle, bhavita, which means worked on, developed. And here we have subhavita, meaning kind of well developed. So yesang chittam subhavita, no, subhavitam, chittam is a neuter noun. Those whose minds are well developed, and samma subhavitam. Let me give you this full screen. Samma subhavitam. This is very emphatic here. You've got bhavitam developed, subhavitam well developed, and here even more emphatically, samma subhavitam, rightly, perfectly well developed. So yesang, those of whom the chittam, the mind, samma subhavatam is perfectly and well developed. Sambodhi angesu, sambodhi, enlightenment, um, angesu, anga, meaning a limb or a member or a part. It's a constituent part of something else, is the anga. And we often see that phrase sambodhyanga translated as a factor. Yes, because it's a factor, something that in Latin, a factor, something that makes up or makes part of something else. So that's why they're called the enlightenment factors. They're the various things that have to come together for sambodhi. I'll give you iPad again. This shows the fluidity, you might say, of the sandhi in Pali. We've got sambodhi. Bodhi on its own is enlightenment, but sambodhi, like fully self-enlightened, samma sambuddha, fully self-enlightened. So the sambodhi plus anga, enlightenment factor, in Pali you can merge sambudhiya. You are allowed to have buddha, sambudjhanga, and on even without the sum we have the buddhanga. That's in Sanskrit. Sambodhi plus plus Sambodhi plus anga in Sanskrit. By the way, these words are exactly the same. Bodhi and anga, the same in Pali and Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, that would become by regular sandhi sambodhyanga, and this dhya would regularly mutate to a jha, which is why we get the sambodhanga or buddhanga or sambodhanga. The way of doing the sandhi in the Sanskrit is fixed. There's only one correct way of doing it. In Pali, it's more fluid, and that's why in this text we have sambodhiyangesu, this y inserted there. So rather than making a full sandhi, it's as if it's kept the two words separate, sambodhi angu, but with a gliding y in between, which is there purely for phonetic purposes. And indeed, it would be perfectly in order. You see, I'm hyphenating it on the screen just to show that y, sambodhi angesu, just to show that it's a phonetic insertion for ease of utterance. It doesn't make any difference to the meaning. So yesam sambodhyangesu samma chittang subhavitam, of whom the mind or the minds are samma, perfectly, subhavitam. Note the mind here, we would say minds in English for multiple people. You tend to stick to the singular in Pali on the grounds that each person has got, so to speak, one mind. Therefore, you'd use the singular, rather the same as you do in French. Those of whom the minds are well developed, sambodhyangesu, in the elements or factors of enlightenment. The next, so that first line, as it were, can stand on as not as a sentence, but as identifying a certain category of people, the category of people whose minds are perfectly well developed in the enlightenment factors. The next line equally is an identifier of a category of people. That's ye. It's the genitive plural here, of whom, those of whom. Here we've got the nominative plural, just those who, rata, That's from ram, to take delight. Those who rata are delighted, take delight in what? Adana patinissage. Let's look at a hyphen here. So as we know, adana, dana, giving, and by prefixing the a to it, it reverses the motion, like gum, agam, go and come. So adana is taking. We have that in the phrase adinna plus adana. Dinna means given, that which is given. Adinna is a slightly irregular past participle from da. Indeed, as in English, we have a slightly irregular past participle. We say gived, we say given, partly dinna. So the adinna, the ungiven, adana, taking. So adinna, when we say adinna, dana, veramani, and so on, it's the ungiven taking. Adinna, adana, adinna, dana. That is the taking of that which is not given. So here we have the adana patinissage. Adana, taking for yourself. Patinissage. Patinissaga sorry, is the abandonment, or the letting something go. Here we are. I've done quite a detailed note on it at the bottom. Strij, from which regularly we get the verbal noun sarga, strij sarga. The way that happens, iPad again. There's a bit of Sanskrit here, but you need it for Pali. Just as we have root yuj, and we want to make a verbal noun, so it makes yoga. Why does it make yoga? Firstly, we apply guna to that vowel, so the u becomes o. And in many, I think even most, certainly most, don't know whether it's all, of these roots that ends in a j or a ch, when you make your verbal noun in this way, they become a g and a k. That's where we get yoga. Srij, what are we going to do? We're going to apply the guna to the r, so we get sar, and the j becomes a g, so we get sarga, letting go. Those of you who have studied some Sanskrit will know about the visarga, which is the one that we translated as a subdotted h, with the at the end. The visarga just means a releasing, a letting go, because it's that release of breath. Nisarga in Sanskrit, again the nih, away, out, nisarga. That's the one that in Pali then becomes nisagga. Again, just means letting it go. Now, look at the prefix prati, pati. Where have we gone? So, a bit of pause while I find the text again. Pause. Sorry, here we are again. This prati, which in Pali becomes pati or pati, sometimes the subdotted, sometimes not. Some words are allowed with both. In Sanskrit, the Sanskrit prefix prati will turn up in Pali either pati or pati. And as I just mentioned, in some words take one form, some the other. It's pretty much random as far as I can see. Some words actually allow both indiscriminately. It just doesn't make any difference. So the nisagga is letting it go, renouncing, abandoning something. But this prefix prati, which is the prefix of like reciprocity, counter as against that, the counterbalance, action and reaction. As I interpret it, it actually adds something to that word. It's more than just a letting go. It's as if the thing that you're letting go, the thing that is to be abandoned, it's almost as if it has a life of its own. It's exerting its influence on you. You want to send it away from you. That's in this nisagga. Out you go. But this petty there's a slight undertone there, is that it, almost like a malevolent force with a mind of its own, has now ceased to try to invade you. It's as if you're letting it go, and it, maybe I'm over translating here, but there's this undertone of this imagery. It's as if it is also saying, okay, I've gone now. I trouble you no more. It's as this with this relational prati. It suggests to relate not just me, somebody doing something to something else. There's an element of reciprocity of relationship. So in that relationship, you have abandoned it, and it has abandoned you as well. So the links are mutually severed, as it were. So I say it's probably going to a little bit of soft focus here, but there's that undertone that's added by this prati. So back to where we were. So I've lost my text boxes again. Don't know why that keeps happening. I don't know why that keeps happening. Let's try again. All borders. There we are. They're back for the time being. So ye rata, those people who delight, nominative plural there. If you delight in something, that takes the locative, Sanskrit and Pali, and that accounts for the locative here. So ye rata, those people who find their delight, adana patinissage, in the renunciation, the letting go of adana, just letting go of grabbing, of taking. Anupadaya is an absolutive here. Those people who, as ye, anupadaya, not, as anupadaya. Let's just unpack that word. All right, here we go. Anupadaya. Okay, so we've got the ada, to take. The absolutive form, having taken, is then identically in Sanskrit and Pali, adaya. With the prefix upa plus adaya, of course, then becomes upadaya. So upada is not just to take, it's the word is used actually often for fuel, as in a fire not just takes the fuel, but takes the fuel up into itself. You can see that imagery. The fire is burning. Just imagine a log fire, and it is taking the fuel up from the logs in it. So this is the upa adaya, taking up, and we make the verbal noun upadana, just as dadana, adana, upadana. And that word is often used to mean fuel, but fuel in the spiritual, psychological sense, that which fuels what we are doing. So here, and you can, by the way, you can put the negating a or an with an absolutive, and just means not doing something. So anupadaya means not taking up. It both means not taking for yourself and not continually taking up, as in using whatever it is you're taking for the fuel that keeps you going. Often in a negative sense, a negative spiritual sense, taking up this fuel that keeps your ignorant behavior, your unskillful behavior going. So anupadaya means not uptaking. There's the undertone here, not just not taking, But the undertone there in this word, with this use of the word meaning fuel, no longer using what you take as a fuel. In other words, you've stopped taking it up. Point one is you've stopped taking it up. Anupadaya. The just means not only not doing it, the idea is possibly also in no longer doing it. You've stopped doing it. Anupadaya, no longer uptaking the fuel. Adana patinissage. Not only have you stopped taking up the fuel, but you've the patinissage, you delight in the renunciation. So not only have you stopped doing it, but there's been the further act, the letting go, and the mutual, goodbye craving, as it were. And craving says, okay, I'm leaving you, I've gone now. Patinissage. So those who delight, those who, having stopped this uptaking, delight in the abandonment and reciprocal abandonment between themselves and the adana, between themselves and the taking. Khinastava jutimanto te loke parinibhuta. So kina, we often see this word in Pali, and the idea is, I seem to have lost my different colors for Sanskrit and Pali for some reason. Okay. It means it means to to waste away, to come to an end, to be ruined or destroyed. Sanskrit khinoti khinati, Pali kinoti kinati. We most frequently find it in a passive form. Sanskrit kshiyate, Pali kshiyati, khyati, means to be wasted, come to an end. Ayu, khyati, life is destroyed. But that the idea there is not just it's an idea of wasting away, fizzling out. And the idea is often not just a sudden destruction, but a gradual wasting away until whatever flow, whatever force was there, dwindles and dwindles and dwindles until it's gone. And this ayu is the same life as we have, for example, in Ayurveda, in Hindu medicine, traditional Indian medicine. Ayurveda, literally life science, life knowledge. By the way, Ayu Jivita, Ayu, what's the difference? Ayu, there's an overlap, of course. I mean, they both mean life. Jivita tends to mean being alive rather than being dead. If you jiva or mata, you're alive or dead. Jivitam also one's livelihood. Ayu, there's an overlap between, there's not a sharp distinction between their meanings. Ayu tends more to have the meaning of life in the sense of one's lifespan, one's length of life. I mean, until the moment that you're dead, you still fully have jivita, but your ayu, khyati, your life is kind of dwindling away. So it can mean both the dwindling, but it can also mean the result of the final dwindling until there's nothing left. But the emphasis on the ending, either the process leading to the ending or on the actual ending. And for example, the dosha kshaya in Sanskrit, the destruction of the faults. So, and the past participle is kina. So, kina asava, the asavas, whose asavas are kina, are extinguished or destroyed. Bahuvrihi, Pali bahubihi, possessive compound. Those who have asavas that are destroyed, or in better English, those whose asavas are extinguished. The jutimanto, we have in Sanskrit, so I don't know why I have lost my, sorry, let's just do that here and now. We knew that should be in red. and that should be in green to show which is Sanskrit and which is Pali. Here we are. Just in case for anybody who's seeing this newly, when you see two words that I've written close to each other, one in bold red and the other in bold green, that is where I'm making the contrast between Sanskrit and Pali. As I said, I seem to have lost some of the colors here for some reason, but I put the Sanskrit will be in red and the Pali will be in green, and I follow that convention. So you can immediately, it's for helping you to compare and contrast the Sanskrit form with the Pali form. So duty seems to be cognate with Deva, the shining ones, also with Zeus, actually, shining. So duty, Pali juti manto, full of brightness, it's with the suffix mant. So juti manto, as many of you will remember, this present participial form in ant, and also the adjectival ending in mant and vant, they can decline in one of two ways in Pali. I'm just about to refer you to the note I've done on this that's available on the hard drive. Let me pause this. And here we are, I've got it up now. This is the consonantal stems in ant, which is the standard ending for the present participle. Also, mant and vant, those are the stem forms. So we've got the Sanskrit and Pali table. Here again, the contrast red and green for ready identification and comparison, Sanskrit and Pali. In Sanskrit, these decline in a particular fixed form. Charan, charantam, charata, and so on. That the red is the Sanskrit. In Pali, Pali allows two different forms. Pali allows it to be an ordinary anta. For example, in Pali, you can, from this root char, to go. In Sanskrit, the plural is charantaha, and Pali can pretty much follow that form of declension. So the aha of Sanskrit becomes the o of Pali. So charanto. So charanto looks a bit like a singular, normal or singular, but it in fact is a plural reflecting this consonantal declension charanto. Now, Pali also permits and uses, I think, equally, regularly. It turns it into an ordinary ah ending. So Pali not only can have the charanto, charatam, can it have this consonantal declension that I've set out in green in the table, it can also make it into a regular adjective ending in a, so charanta. And they're interchangeable in Pali. So here, jutimanto, this is the mant ending, manto. This follows the consonantal declension, so the plural ending o. It could equally have been the akaranta shabda ending, so from jutimanta, jutimanta, it would have been. Either of those two forms would have been acceptable in Pali. So jutimant, bright, full of brightness. They, loke, loka, the world. Loke, in the world. Parinibbuta. So it's from the same root as nirvana, nibbana. There's some argument whether it's truly the past participle of nirvana, or is it also from nirvrita, just gone out, proceeded away. I don't think that ambiguity in the word is fully settled yet from a linguistic point of view, but you can treat, if I've done a note on it, no, you can treat it, and for practical purposes, you can treat it, and I think Pali grammarians tend to treat it as nibbuta as simply an irregular, but the normal past participle from nibbana, so nibbuta, gone to nirvana, and pari, that's final, the pari, same as the Greek peri, meaning around. is just an emphatic all-round, completely finished off and done. Just as we got the, for example, the parinibbana, when the Buddha came to the end of his physical life, his human life, it's referred to as parinibbana, and therefore he was parinibbuto. So te parinibbuta, nominative plural, they parinibbuta loke, have already won nibbana, loke, in the world. Oh, I see, I have done a note about it, and it's under verse 6681 above. So I will read it through once more, and if I think of any explanations I need to give, I will. So, yesang sambodhyangesu sammachittang subhavitam adana patinissagge anupadaya yerata kinasava jutimanto te loke parinibbuta. So that brings us to the end of this verse, the end of this video, and indeed to the end of this chapter, the Pandita Vaggo, and we will resume with the next chapter, which is the Arahanta Vagga, the chapter on the Arahants. Thank you.